It's July 20th, 9:45 p.m. I came across a video yesterday that hit very deep for me. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, I came across a video yesterday that hit really deep for me. It was a guy talking about how if you're trying to sell something on the internet, you're trying to sell yourself or some kind of lifestyle or whatever it is you're doing, that you're essentially trying to be a leader. And if you're trying to be a leader, you can't just say these things. You have to actually be that thing yourself. You have to embody the same principles that you're trying to share with people. So, if you're a fitness influencer, let's say, you yourself have to be fit and in shape, and you have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And something about this really hit deep for me because way back when I first started doing this, I was considering, actually even prior to leaving my old company where I used to work and starting my own entrepreneurial journey here, I remember one thing that I was always insecure about deep down was that I don't walk the walk. That insofar as I make myself a public figure, I'm exposing myself as someone who might be a hypocrite. That if I can't live up to the standards that I set for myself and that I even set for others, that who am I to be out there representing these things? Because I always knew about how I wanted my philosophical worldview to be a big part of the games and the art that I make and about everything that I do. And at the peak of my self-actualization so far in my life, and specifically this occurred around the time when I finally quit my job to start doing this, I was doing extremely well back then, and I felt like I had overcome that insecurity because I really did embody the values that I treasured. But ever since, specifically, I think I moved to Montreal, now that I think about it, because this really spurred me to start thinking about what happened along the way. And I've made some videos where I've already discussed things along these lines. But I think it was from the moment I arrived in Montreal that perhaps the shock of suddenly trying to live in a different place, not really knowing anyone here and trying something so incredibly new and radical for me, that I guess it deep down made me scared or insecure, I don't know, but one way or another, it started to lead me down a path that took me further and further away from my ideal of who I want to be. And I've been talking about in some videos about trying to figure out, well, who is this real me? What is my authentic self? And I always ultimately come back to the most ideal version of myself. When I think about what is the happiest times of my life, when was I most at peace with myself, most satisfied, most happiest, most confident, most content? It was in the few periods of my life where I really did live according to these ideals that I have in my mind, these principles that I believe are what make life ultimately worth living and what give life its purpose. And so I've been going back and forth in a lot of videos about what it means for me to be authentic, and I'm constantly caught between this natural version of myself, like the compulsive version of myself. Like if I don't care about anything at all, how do I behave? Things like how I deal with people when they piss me off, like I've been talking about that recently, right? Is that the real me? And I am a coward for not allowing that side of myself to come out completely unhinged? Or is the real me the striving for that ideal version of myself? And I think it's just finally come back to me and struck me that no, the real me is the ideal version. I mean, the real me is who I am right now, which is in some kind of transitionary state between that animalistic nature that I have, the unrestrained, primitive, compulsive nature, and this ideal that I want to fulfill. And I think the entirety of my life purpose is to move toward that ideal. And in fact, now that I think about it, it's so straightforward. That's exactly what my worldview always was. And it makes me question as to where did I get so confused along the way? Why have I even been sitting around thinking about, I think I just got lost in so much social media self-help type of nonsense that tells you about just be yourself and who cares if you piss people off and whatever. And I mean, to be fair, no matter what you do, I do think there's truth to that stuff. If you're completely your authentic self, people will dislike you anyway. Even if I'm my ideal self that I'm talking about right now, people will dislike me. But it somehow warped me into thinking that even the parts of myself that I know don't live up to my standards, to my ideal, are something authentic about me that I can share, and that I shouldn't change about myself, and then trying to figure out where's the line to be drawn there. But no, absolutely, the most fulfilling parts of my life have always been the parts where I tried to strive for that perfectly ideal version for myself. Not that you can be perfect, of course, or even completely fulfill that ideal form, but to be constantly working towards that. So the past few months, most especially, the past few months I've just been kind of going through my typical coping mechanisms. But so for the past few years, I've been kind of wandering like that, sort of lost and feeling bad about myself. And now that I think about it, I think it's as simple as that. Just that I've moved so far away from trying to be what I really always wanted to be and where I feel my greatest strengths are. And so I don't know what else to say here other than that. I think it's time for me to finally lock in. I think I need to stop sitting around and questioning this and going back and forth all the time, and just sort of humble myself and submit to the greater powers that be, if you will, my more spiritual worldview, and to come back to who I feel I was meant to be. And I think that's going to take great conscious effort on my part. And that needs to begin now. Now, at the risk of embarrassing myself and coming back here tomorrow or in a couple of days or whatever and talking about how I failed again, at least now I have a direction, and I am without any doubt about it. And hopefully, from this moment here, I will now begin to embody those values, to be the person that I want to be, and not just be the person I want to be, but to embody those values also even for all of the content that I make from this point forth. And to no more just do whatever and to be whatever and see how things work and experiment. I think I get where my focus is now, and I was kind of talking about this last night, and that's what I'm going to move towards now and make a very conscious effort. And I'll figure it out one way or another. Well, I think that about sums it up. So hopefully, from this point on, right now, starting now, you're going to see what it means to lock in. That's all I wanted to say tonight. The only other thing I was going to mention is that tomorrow I'm going to be doing a podcast, an interview with this podcast called Quest something? Quest Unplayed. So I don't know if they do this live. I don't think they do, but they post on YouTube, they post on Spotify. I guess I'll mention it again when the episode actually comes out, but should be fun. It'd be cool to do an interview with these guys. Sit down and talk a little bit about the game. I have to see what the format is still too. That's it. I wish you well. Godspeed, future Matt. I'll see you tomorrow.